Welcome in, everyone. This is our flow recap for the week of 8:15 to 8:22. It's technically 8:18 to 8:22, but in my previous video, I said I want to kind of start recapping that Friday flow because you don't always see a huge move that same day. It usually carries over into the next week, so we're going to touch on last week's Friday's flow, kind of touch on that, look it over again, and then we're going to look at this week's flow. Again, a very outstanding week of flow here. As always, we're going to look at the full range of motion from the contract. So from the whale entry to the max return possible that week, we can take a peek at where that whale exited, if they exited, and so on. So let's get started here. And again, for anybody that is new joining here, everything I post is obviously in real time. I don't edit my posts. Everything is in actual real time here. We're going to actually first start out here with a flow and charts play from the week. So I want to touch on the flow and charts plays. Again, for those that are newer to Stock Hub, flow and charts plays are my high conviction trades. These are the trades that I like to set up most, the flow, the chart, all that. So I do just want to touch on this. So this came in here 8:19. So this is actually valid for 8:20 because this is posted at night. So we had a large whale on the 10/17/15 put. You can see our contracts here, 9,000 contracts, 1.6 million. Kind of looking at that gamma here as well. You saw a big decrease in the daily gamma. And just kind of looking at that chart, we were testing that bottom of that uptrend, that little channel there. So that's what stuck out to me there. Now I just want to kind of move over to the chart here. So as you can see, we obviously broke down here through. So I wanted this one as a momentum entry. And again, I'm going to pop this over one more time. So again, I was kind of put a little guidance here, obviously. Well, it was a little more longer term. I kind of figured the trade would have took a little bit longer to kind of start out, but we're kind of looking for a break below that channel on the daily here. So when we come over here and look, you can see, so again, on the 19th, this would have been valid on the 20th. You can see we actually, I'm going to kind of zoom in here on the hour chart here, and we're going to go back and look at the 18th here. So you can see, or the 20th, sorry. So you can see we actually opened, and I want to zoom in a little bit further. We're going to look at the 1 minute chart here. It'll be a little easier to see that here. So here is your 1 minute chart. So this was almost a perfect entry and everything. So here's your 18th here. Opened up a little bit below that, but we came back up and hit that trend line perfectly, and then just downward momentum from there. And you can see it kind of came up. I actually closed same day. I made notes in Discord about that, but very nice drop there same day. It's a huge drop here. Obviously looking at, let's see, where is my tool? So when you look at, here we go. I mean, from our entry down to the low of the day, it's almost a 7% drop. That's a huge drop on contracts. So that's kind of why I was like, okay, we're moving down a lot quicker and further than I kind of expecting right away. I'm going to secure some profits, and came back up here. Obviously, kind of coming back up slightly to that 19 or 15.95 was the entry area here, or 14.95, sorry. So if we even mark that here, at 14.95, or it's going to be 14.99. I'm going to be sloppy with it a little bit. I mean, you can see even just looking at that, I mean, it's been still resistance here. We haven't really broke back up above that, but these actually hit, and I'm going to pop out of here. So the RGTIs, we're going with the low of the day because we actually came back up and hit that low of the day. So when you look at the 20th here, your low of the day was 194. You hit 238, 241 today was the high on that one. So that would have gave you about a 24.23% return on the flow and charts play. Very nice, easy play there. That's a nice high conviction trade. You get your flow, your charts, all that sticks out there. So I just like to touch on the flow and charts, get that out of the way at first. So now let's come back here to the 15th, and we're going to look at that flow from Friday. So we're going to look at these core weaves first. These expired today, the 8/22/112 calls. You come back here and look at the day. 350, about 1,100 contracts or so. You can see we had about 400 there, about 371 there on Monday. To me, that's telling me that looks like that whale, because when you come here and look at the 18th, 1,000 contracts, about 1,500 traded. Not a big change in that open interest. Looks like that whale probably passed those off to somebody else at about probably about a 178, 128 loss. So that whale would have sold those for a 55% loss. That is one of our losers on the week. But our other ones outweigh these. And even so, obviously, you had that big spike here at 27 on the day. That's bigger than that original candle there. 1138, 11, that's about the same. So this whale could have actually technically closed here on the 19th. Hard to know, obviously, you had some volume carryover there, but to me, I'm seeing this as that whale probably closed here about the ask or so. But one of our losers for the week. So up next, we have the LYFT 10/17/17 calls. Again, from Friday, these actually made an intraday move on Friday. These hit their high here today, closing near the high, hitting a high of 130, 136.36% on those if you swung those over the week and into this week. And we'll touch deeper on these ones, on the new ones. That previous video, I obviously dove into the flow on here a little bit too, so don't want to kind of double dip on that. So MU flow here again, 263. Ran that next day a little bit and then kind of chopped for session and a half. Then we had a gap down. But from our Friday flow, most of that carrying over, we hit 328 here for a high. So again, that's a 24.71% max return there. And what I like to tell people with flow, if I'm just trading flow, I have tight stops on. If I see flow that's up 10% or so, 10, 15%, I at least have a stop on it break even. I'm a 10, 15% return trade. That is a good return on a trade. You see a lot of 200, 300% trades. Those are great. They happen, but you're going to be very more consistent and a better trader if you're taking, 10, 15, 20% gains. Those are great gains, and they're really great portfolio builders. And especially if you are just following the random flow, like I said, I always like to have a tight stop on. You never know. These whales like today, you can see the MU one probably cutting here at 97 from 263. Got greedy. Who knows what happened? But again, that's why you never know the full kind of spectrum what the whale is doing here. Always be cautious and always have a risk and kind of have a trade idea or an idea going into the trade. So, but MU again, 263 hitting that high of 328, so that's 24.71% there. GTLB, these ran obviously that same day on Friday, 202, coming up hitting 375, hitting 383 is for the high of the week here today on 8/22, 383 there. You can see actually hit 386 here on Monday. So that is your high, 93% there. So Monday you got your high of the week. Today, if they would have swung again, could have had a good return. And this is a really good example too of kind of why I like adjusting up stops. This whale into Monday, these contracts were at 202. Again, came up here, hit 375-ish, 383-ish. These contracts came all the way back down to 202. That whale came back to break even and held those. This is why I like having a stop on. You can always get back into a trade, but securing profits, and you can always recycle those profits. That's one thing I like to say. Just recycle profits as well, and just try to take as much. You don't need to hold. To me, that's not a great trade. You're in at 202 and you come up to 375 and they drop down to break even again. You're giving up a 93% return. That's not smart. That is not good. That is not a good trade. Even though you came back up here and hit it again, it doesn't matter. You gave up almost 100%. You could have put a stop on here on Monday, got out, let's just say 325, dropped down and you see, okay, hey, that whale's still in. Maybe I'm going to recycle some of those profits I got, and then you get a nice run up. That is one thing I always tell people as well. So again, those making a good move, 2 to 386, 93% return on those. So now on to this week. So we had the MSTR 387.5 calls. We're going to pop back to Monday and look at these. So again, here's our entry here. You can see a lot of that net call premium up there as well. We look at that raw flow here. Oops, I don't need to pop that there. So again, I'm looking for that IV increase and that spot price. I like to see what that whale's coming in at. You can see that IV spike there. Flow's coming in at the ask. Reads as a buy to me. And 225 here kind of dropped a little bit, and then we came back up and actually chopped near the high from about 11, and I'm Central Time for those that might be new tuning in. 11:05 to about an hour and a half. So that's enough time to kind of put a stop on there. You're up about 10%, 9% or so. Let's see, what do we got? 225 to 247, 9.78%. I still have a stop on. Again, you're chopping at this. You know these contracts are very short dated. Theta's very aggressive on that. Put a stop on. You can always, again, like I said with GTLB, get back in with recycled profits, because now look, this whale actually closed that same day at a loss of 185. So again, you don't always have to follow these whales off a cliff. Be smart, protect your profits, secure your gains. So that did, and again, the way that I kind of like to do these videos, I like to look for at least 10%, 10-15% minimum return on these. 9.78%, that's very close to 10%, so I count this as a win, especially when you have almost an hour and a half to kind of put a stop on for at least break even. So up next, we have, and actually, sorry, I want to touch on one more thing here. So, I mean, you look at MSTR. So, I mean, that was your whale entry, whale exit. You can see no change in that open interest. So, you know that whale cut that same day. Okay, so let's move on here to Wolf, the 919.11 calls. So, again, another interesting one because these are from the 18th here. Again, this is why I say be smart, be smart. Here's our entry. You can see that net call premium up. A lot of bid side puts. We'll look at that flow here. Again, you can see that IV spike when it comes in. IV stays up. Spot's coming in at the ask. Spot is just your fill price. Come here and look. This was our entry. 95. They kind of just, I mean, dropped just a teeny bit, and then you started to come up here. 99, 111, 118. These actually hit 121, obviously, with the spread there. Again, that's a 27% return there. You have 28 days on them still, but again, if I see profits, take the profits. Take profits and re-enter these trades, if anything. And even just kind of bumping this out to Friday here. We'll take a peek. So again, that was a small little entry there, then the little pop. Now you can start seeing some bid side action here because that whale's selling for a loss. A lot of bid side action here. And we didn't have a full amount of that open interest or volume carry over into open interest here on the 19th. So my guess is that whale probably took off some of that here, maybe at the ask and the bid. But starting to get a lot of volume here. Kind of gets a little messy once you get a lot of that volume. But again, those contracts moved from 95 to 121. Enough time to kind of take some profits on them. So up next, we have the 926 RKLB 50 calls. So again, another very good example. We're going to pop back here to the 18th when they came in. Here's our flow. Here's our entry. And again, if you're just tuning in for the first time, everybody that's a regular viewer, you know that my flow is typically very uniform. You're going to see it very uniform. IV popping there. Spot price coming in at the ask. And I do like to look at the volume around it, especially if the timing's kind of similar. So, I mean, you still have a little of that IV dropping. The one contract there doesn't really concern me. This probably isn't really retail, or this probably isn't that whale. I mean, you're coming in a couple minutes later, but that IV is still kind of going up. And you can see 315, obviously contracts rocketing up here, 355, hitting 367. And again, chopping from about 10:20 to 11:10, so almost an hour on those. And again, you can see most of that volume's still there, and it looks like your contracts are kind of being passed off as well here because you're not seeing that open interest change. But again, another one, 315 coming up here, hitting I think it was 375 on the high for the day. That's a 19% gain. Again, another good trade where you see if you just continuously follow the whale off a cliff, you may end up selling for a loss because there was your move. Contract starting to kind of come down. Now you see your big spike here on the 20th. And you see about 844 of those contracts come off. So that whale actually ended up closing these, again, probably for a loss here. But again, like I said, the time is there. Adjust your stops up, secure your profits. But 315 to 375 there, 19%. Very good return there. So up next we have the 829 Palantir 147 puts. These actually made a good move from the 20th. We're going to start there. So here's our whale entry from the 19th. Smaller $104,000 premium on that one, but you can see a lot of this moving the same day and then hitting the high here on the 20th, hitting 945 from that 151 average there. And again, just kind of looking at the flow here. You see right when that flow starts coming in, IV spikes, you're coming in at the ask, flow looks good. And then you see a lot of that volume here on the 20th near kind of that high, a little bit before the high, but a lot of that volume coming off here. You can see a lot of contracts changing hands because 3,600 contracts on the day, only 400 contracts carrying over. So this whale passed these off onto somebody else. Somebody saw Palantir dropping, they wanted more puts, that whale sold them, and you're obviously seeing some ask side flow here. So that whale's selling at the ask and bid. Now just remember, not everything at the bid is a sell and not everything at the ask is a buy. We use context clues like the IV increasing, spot coming in at the ask, spot price increasing, just kind of things like that. So good move on those. Again, 151 to 945. That's a 525% max return. We also have the SPY puts from that same day. Come here to the 20th. Again, we got in here on that second candle. 152 was our entry. Seen a lot of ask side hits there. Pretty unusual to me. Then you have your big spike and drop here on SPY that next day. Big bid side candle coming in here. These hit a high of, on the 20th, 379. And even that same day, if you swung, or that next day, still would have been in profits. 379 there. 149.34% return on those SPY puts. And when you look at the bid side flow here as well too. So I want to see if it shows it. And you can see like right here. So you see how that IV is a little higher. That flow's coming in at the bid here, and it's kind of a multi-leg trade, so a little tougher to show on that one. But you see how that IV drops. That's kind of a sign of a sell there. So good move there again. The SPY 152 to 379, 149.34%. End phase, this was a really interesting one because here's your whale entry here, 38. These dropped for a couple days and then rocketed back up. Hit a high of 47 on the day to day. That's a 23.68% return, closing at 38. So that whale's closing at break even, but like that, I'd be taking profits. You're going to have heavy theta over the weekend, but very nice recovery on those. So again, those 38 to 47, that is a 23.68% gain. Now, one more thing I want to touch on with the end phase. Something like this, 38, I'm probably not going to let the contracts drop down to 7 cents. That's where I'm kind of maybe thinking, okay, well, I have a stop. Typically what I like to do, and this is different from everybody else, if I'm taking just flow plays that are coming in, tight stops, 10, 15%, I want my wins to outweigh that. But like this, I mean, if you were kind of watching this, there's actually a member in the group that got these at 10 and rode them up to 20 today. So, I mean, 100% return, waited for a good entry and got a good return on those. So again, just another little tip and trick you can always do. So Intel here, we have the 9, 19, 21, 5 puts. Our entry coming in here, I'm going to pop this out. We don't need 7 days now. Here's our whale entry. Come in here. See if I can pop this back anymore. So again, see that IV, how it spikes. That flow, that spot's coming in right at the ask. Now we have some bid side flow here at 65 here that next day. These did hit a high of 72, so that's a 28.57% return. We look at that bid side flow. This might be a better example than the SPY flow because this isn't multi-leg. So I'm just looking at that bid side, that IV dropping, so you can see IV just kind of slowly dropping as we're coming in here. Just seeing that size here, and I don't know if it's going to let me go up here. So you can see 52.26. Okay, 52.26 was that one. Let me come back in here. So, okay, well, this might not be the best example either, but we'll look at this bid one because it looks like that whale probably sold some. And your IV is going to be up, obviously, because Intel's down a little bit too, but like today, it looks like they probably sold the rest for a loss here. You got 936 there plus 980 there. Very close to that 2000. So like today, we'll take a peek at this one. So you can just see kind of that IV. Well, and I don't have, it's easier to show it if you have some surrounding flow with it. Because when that flow comes in, you'd probably see that IV drop, but you're coming in at the bid here. So to me, that's telling me that whale's cutting. Sold half for a gain, sold the rest for a loss. So again, that's why I'm always saying to adjust up stops, because 56 to 72, that's a 28.57% gain. Good return on those. So Roblox, this one, little to be determined on this one still, because again, this was our entry, 559. These actually made a really nice little move up here into close, hitting about 639, actually 650 with that spread. That's 17.12%. And even that next day, let's see, what did we, 559 that next day. You weren't really near that high on that next day, but again, it looks like, I mean, you're getting some volume and some no side volume today. Have to see how much carries over into Monday. But again, if I see profits like this, I'm still going to secure some 17%. You might have a lot of time on these still, but again, seeing profits, you can always get them, take profits, especially when you know there may be data that next day. We had S&P PMIs that next day, kind of a lot going on too, continuing claims, all that. You should know to take profits, adjust stops up, or again, something a little longer term. You can always find discounted entries typically too. So I mean, like yesterday, if you would have got in lower, you would have got a good little return pat up here. But these almost coming back to break even today, hitting 530. So, but again, that 555 to that 650, and that was a quick intraday move there. 17.12% there. So BE, again, another nice mover here. Look at that flow. Again, 473,000 premium, 253. Just a nice smooth move up here, hitting 441 for a high today. 72.94% on those. Tesla, so this one could kind of be marked as a win, but I'm going to mark it as a loss. when we look at the flow, I want to come back to Thursday when it came in. So here's your flow. You know it's short term. You know you have a big day in the market coming up. This flow ran from 326 and hit that 362. That's a good little return. Just a tick over 10%, about 11% there, give or take. I have it marked as a loss, so I don't have the actual like winning percentage there, but I have so then when you come over to Friday here, so you can see obviously a lot of that volume here at open, and it even shows 370 as a high for the open. I don't think they would have been at 370, but that whale cutting these at probably 301, that's a 7% loss on those. You could have took an 11%, 10% gain quick there, heading in knowing Tesla's a higher theta stock, especially on a weekly. But I have that as a loss here, 325. That whale cut at 301. So on to today. So we had BAC. These made a great intraday move. Not a ton to touch on with this. Just kind of looking at that flow here. Let's come down here. So again, you see right when that flow comes in, IV spikes, spots coming at the ask. Looks good there. You have a lot of net call premium. Contracts just moved up all day, 72, hitting 118, kind of closing near that high. But 63.89% intraday move. Can't argue with something like that. And these CMGs, the 919, 45, 5 calls, a lot of time on them here still. 67 closed at 66, whales down 1.5%. But that's kind of all I got for this week for the flow recap. We'll touch on BAC and CMG again next flow recap as well. But great week here. Everybody in the Discord doing great and everything. So that's all I got for this week. Great week of flow. Have a great weekend, everyone.